A note to listeners. The following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences. And what was your relationship like with Colt?
It was great. We were doing a lot of drugs. I had a lot of drugs at that time. I was selling a lot of drugs at that time, so we did a lot of partying, hanging out, shooting pool with.
And did you ever meet Molly?
No, I've never met Molly.
So you didn't even know who she was?
No.
So the last time you saw Colt, he was with...
He was with and Rob Nichols.
Would you ever have hurt Colt?
No, I would not.
How did you feel when you realized that Colt wasn't coming home?
I still have hope, and I struggle with the fact that I don't know if my little brother was a Christian or not.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman.
It's been about a year since we released an episode on Molly and Colt's case. For everyone who is new to this case, we're going to give a little backstory before we dive into today's episode.
In 2013, on July 8th, 17-year-old Molly Miller, 21-year-old Colt Haynes, and 21-year-old Con Nip were on their way out to a party when they became involved in a high-speed chase with law enforcement.
The chase was allegedly called off by the sheriff at the time, Joe Russell, who also happens to be Con Nip's cousin.
Con Nip drove into the woods where Molly and Colt jumped out. Over the course of the night, there were dozens of phone calls made from Molly and Colt's phone, telling friends that they were in trouble in the woods. None of the phone calls were made to either Molly or Colt's family members. Molly's last phone call was made at 9:45 a.m. the next day.
The next day, Con Nip was alive and well, but Molly and Colt were nowhere to be found. Joe Russell reported Molly and Colt as runaways when questioned by the local news.
2 weeks after they went missing, Con made a statement to his cousin, the sheriff, Joe Russell, that he thought that they went to Wichita Falls. Molly's family knew that this was not the case.
Paula Fielder, Molly's cousin, quickly organized her own searches, and after 2 weeks, they came across the car that was used in the high-speed chase. But there was no sign of Molly or Colt.
Paula and her family hired Philip Klein, a private investigator, to conduct an independent investigation. Klein interviewed hundreds of people and came up with several theories about what happened. But still, there was no bodies and no solid evidence to prove anything.
Paula and her family continued to search for Molly, following up on thousands of tips that they received on social media.
In 2014, Con Nip was arrested for another high-speed chase, and he spent 4 years in prison.
In 2016, Joe Russell was indicted by the grand jury for harboring a fugitive and maintaining a house where methamphetamines were being used. He was forced to resign and put on house arrest.
This has become one of the most controversial missing person cases in Oklahoma history.
There are thousands of theories, police reports, statements, and testimonies, but still, after a decade, Molly and Colt have not been found.
In 2019, we produced the television show Up and Vanished for the Oxygen Network and did an episode on Molly and Colt's case.
We went to Oklahoma and interviewed several family members of Molly and Colt, including Colt's older brother, Jesse Haynes. Because of time constraints in the show, Jesse's interview never made it on air.
Jesse told us that he served in the Army and did 2 tours overseas, but that when he came back to Oklahoma, he had multiple run-ins with the law.
Jesse had been to prison multiple times for selling methamphetamines and for stealing.
In the thousands of police reports, statements, and audio recordings that Paula has given to us, there was never any mention of Jesse's involvement in the disappearance of Molly and Colt.
In 2022, we began producing the podcast to continue awareness of the case. We brought Jackie Bates, who worked with the Ringling Police Department, on as a guest. He had a theory that Molly and Colt were in the creek bed close to where the car was found. Jackie had gained Paula's trust and was given access to her Dropbox of files that she has accumulated over the years, including audio recordings, statements, tips, and theories. There are thousands of pages on the Dropbox.
Jackie wrote up a search warrant for the property where the car was found, but it was denied and the case was once again stalled.
Gary Henry, a local lawyer in the area, reached out to me on Facebook and inserted himself into the case by asking if he could help. After discussing with Paula and Jackie, we agreed to share Jackie's search warrant with him.
It was not long after we had Colt's cousin Amber on the podcast, and I received a scathing text from Henry telling me that he was now representing the Nips and Joe Russell. He was very aggressive in the text, and we cut ties with him.
We organized a search of Battle Springs Ranch in 2022 with retired FBI agent Maureen O'Connell and Cheryl Mack McCullum, director of the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute in Atlanta. Jackie Bates was invited to this search. While he was there, he said to us that we were wasting our time because he knew where Molly and Colt were, and that he knew Jesse Haynes was the one responsible for Colt's disappearance, which he had started saying to Rob over and over again. We thought this was odd because Jesse's name had never come up as a suspect in the case before. After returning home from the excavation, we received an email from Gary Henry on November 4th, 2022, telling us to step down from doing the podcast, but we did not step down.
We continued to produce episodes until the Bureau of Indian Affairs became involved and took over the case from the OSBI. We did not want to interfere with their investigation, and after consulting with Paula, we decided to take a break from the podcast.
On February 10th, 2023, Jesse Haynes was arrested for methamphetamines, theft, and possession of a firearm. Jesse was not arrested for anything in connection with the disappearance of Molly and Colt. He has never been charged with anything related to Molly and Colt, and Jesse has been interviewed by federal authorities numerous times.
Which is why it is very strange that Gary and Jackie decided to publish a blog in March 2023, pointing the finger at Jesse as the perpetrator.
What is even more disturbing about the blog is that many of the sources, such as audio recordings, statements, police reports, emails, and tips, were taken from Paula's Dropbox and used without her permission by the authors of the blog to perpetuate their theory that Jesse is responsible.
We know that the BIA is actively investigating this case, but after a year of Jesse's name being tossed around as the perpetrator by people on the internet who have no other source except the blog put out by Jackie Bates and Gary Henry, we decided that it was time to reach out and ask Jesse his side of the story.
Jesse has agreed to speak with us today. We asked him if he wanted to read the blog before the interview, and he refused. He said that he had heard about all the misinformation in the blog from a friend, but he wanted no part of it.
The bottom line is, all everyone wants is that the people who are responsible for Molly and Colt's disappearance to be brought to justice. The families do not care who solves this case, as long as it's solved and Molly and Colt are brought home. So please, if you know something, contact the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Their information is on our website. Now let's hear what Jesse Haynes has to say.
Convicted, but you're not being convicted of this right now. You're not in jail for this. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I want to make it clear statement that you are not in jail for anything that has to do with Molly and Colt. And that's
public record.
I know. But the problem is that Jackie and his people, that Gary Henry guy, they're putting out there that you did this. It'd be good if you could come on the podcast and tell everybody that your story. That way we can debunk what he's saying about you. Just declare your name publicly, because
I'm down to do whatever is going to get my little brother in Molly's found faster.
Hey Jesse, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay.
Good. We really appreciate you talking to us. I think it's really important, like Cindy said,
yes,
because when that blog came out, we believed in initially when he did that first search, and then his warrant got turned down. He came on the podcast and he talked about it, and we felt like he had a good heart in it. But that quickly turned sour when it didn't pan out for him. And because Jackie's not an official police officer, he is basically a auxiliary police officer. He's not a trained law enforcement person. He felt.
Okay, so right there, he's trading around that he's an OSBI investigator. That's what he told me, and he told everybody that I know that he's an OSBI investigator.
Well, listen, he can live in that
world,
but we know for a fact that wasn't the case. I mean,
but
he was giving information to the OSBI, but anybody can give information to the OSBI.
Right.
So, but he was.
But let's start at the beginning. So when did you start talking to Jackie?
2019. I was working in Texas for an old company, and he called me he actually texted me on Facebook and told me who he was and that he talked to my little brother Doug. Doug told him how to get a hold of me and wanted to sit down with me, but I was in Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and he was in Ringling, and I said, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. And we chatted back and forth there from Texas on our phones via text message and Facebook.
And then what happened? How did he start? He just kept continuing the conversation with you?
Yeah, well, he said what he really wanted to know from me was about an orange motorcycle. I told him straight out the gate, if you're talking about Rob Nichols' orange motorcycle, I'm the one that stole the motorcycle. And he was kind of taken back that I had stolen it because he told me Rob Nichols told him that he thought Colt had stole it, and that's the conversation about Rob going out there.
First of all, let's talk about your relationship with Colt and the age difference between you.
He was born in 95, and I was born in 81, so that's 14 years difference. He was around 5-ish, I think, 4 or 5. When my mom and dad divorced, my dad moved to the city with them. Didn't work out. Colt and my little brother, J.W. Haynes, stole a vehicle in the city at 8 and 5 and drove it to Long Grove, wrecked it. I picked up hitchhiking at 8 and 5 and made it to my grandmother's house. But my dad kind of quit on us after that. Well, when my dad quit, I joined the military in 2002, shortly after all of that. And I was gone until 2011 when my dad passed away and I come home. So I was still building on and trying to build on a relationship of my absence.
And when you were gone, where did you go?
I got out of the military in 2006 on an honorable discharge. I went to Texas for a little bit and stayed with my daughter Angel, who I have with my first wife. I stayed with her for a year and a half or so, and then I met a girl online, Plenty of Fish, and went to Pennsylvania to visit her for the weekend, and she never took me back to the airport. We got married 9 months later, and I was there until 2011 when my father passed away.
And so did you get divorced at that time? Why did you get divorced? We
were divorced probably... Her divorce papers beat me to Oklahoma from Pennsylvania, and I signed them as soon as I got in and sent them back to her. So we were divorced within weeks of me leaving in August of 2011.
Why? What caused that divorce?
My father had cancer, vocal cord cancer, and I came earlier in the year, like April, I believe, to see my dad because he was really bad. And instead of her coming with me, she sent her daughter for support. I mean, she should have come with you. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, she sent her 11-year-old daughter with me. So that was a big red flag to me. We get back and my dad dies 2 days after my birthday, May 19th. My birthday's on the 17th. My dad passes away on May 19th, and I come home and let her know, that my father had passed away, and she said that she wanted a divorce. I asked, she didn't want to give me no sympathy. She didn't want to give me any support. At that time, I was done. Took me a while to quit my job. I gave my 2 weeks notice in Pennsylvania, gave me my 2 weeks, waited for my check, got all my things together, paid off some things, paid off a lawnmower that we had been bought, that we had purchased together. I paid that off, and I packed up and I left. And I come back to Oklahoma August 10th, 2011.
And when you came back, where did you live?
With my grandmother.
And was Colt there too?
No, he was in custody. I don't know if he was in prison or in county jail. All I know was that he was in custody when I made it back.
And he was in custody for what? For drugs?
Never got around to asking him.
So when he got out of jail...
When he got out, before he got out, my little brother, Doug, come over and seen me and Grandma, and he told her that Colt was about to get out, and she had some foul words to say about him and said that he wasn't going to be staying there, that he couldn't be on her property. I defended my brother and told him that if I have a place to stay, so does he. And I said we could talk about that later, when Dub goes, but I can keep him out of the house, but if I have a place to stay, so does he. Me and my grandmother talked about it, and my shop out back in my grandmother's house had a room in it that I had a bed and a love seat and a chair, and that's where he stayed for several months after he got out of prison or wherever his incarceration.
And what was your relationship like with Colt?
It was great. We were doing a lot of drugs. I had a lot of drugs at that time. I was selling a lot of drugs at that time, so we did a lot of partying, hanging out, shooting pool at Bad Habits. There's a bar in Wilson, between Wilson and Hilton and Ringland, that we would go and shoot pool at frequently. Our cousin Tina worked there, and she was staying at my grandmother's house as well in the house. Me and Cole were outside, and we would go and support the bar because Tina worked there. It was really good.
Did he have a lot of girlfriends?
The only girlfriend I seen him with when he was at my house, when he was staying with me those couple of months, was Katie Savage. Now, I had a bunch of people come over, a bunch of Colt's friends come over to buy drugs from me and, hang out with Colt.
Now, who are these people that he's hanging out with? Were they people that you knew, or is it just kind of...
No, these were his age kids. Con showed up at some point. Con Nip showed up at some point and was introduced to me, but I don't remember him because he wasn't my friend. He was Colt's friend. I don't remember meeting him. If I'd seen Con Nip right now today, I would shake his hand and would know who he was. I don't know Con Nip. I don't know his friends. I had a lot of traffic in and out because I was actually selling methamphetamines.
And Colt was 14 years younger than you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big generation.
If I get home in 2011, that makes me 31 years old. 18 or 19?
Yeah, so there's a big age difference.
Yeah, he was a teenager when you were 31.
So you had this party house that everybody's coming and going, dealing drugs. And was Colt dealing drugs with you, or was he doing his own thing?
No, he was just partaking in the drugs that I supplied.
When did Jerry Lynn come in the picture?
Geraldine came in the picture when I got arrested in 2012 in Carter County. I can't tell you what month it was in 2012.
What did you get
Carter
arrested
County.
for?
The charge ended up being possession of methamphetamines within 2,000 feet of the school. And I pled guilty to it because I was guilty of that charge. But before I pled guilty to that, I went and got bonded out. When I was out on bond, Colt wasn't around because I was in jail for a few days and Grandma kicked everybody out. My grandmother kicked everybody out of my place. When I got arrested, Colt and Katie and whoever else was out there at that time, she went out and kicked everybody out and locked my place up. So I went to jail. I got bonded out of jail, went home. Colt wasn't there.
Who bonded you out?
Corey, Don Claiborne, and Bobby Williams bonded me out.
And then when you got out, what happened?
Well, I went back to my grandmother's, and I was supposed to make my bond payment, but I didn't. My supplier had stopped selling to me because I'd been in jail, fear of me setting him up, which is smart. 2013, January 2013. I was at my grandma's house for a few months because it was still cold. When Geraldine had been coming over, and we'd been doing drugs together, and she'd been there. Nobody else had come. No, everybody else knew I didn't have no drugs, so nobody had any use for me. But Geraldine was there. She was there for a few months. We started having sex and started a relationship. But this was probably March, early April.
Did she have kids at that time?
She had 6 kids.
With how many men?
2.
Two fathers?
She had 3 children with one father and then 3 children with another.
And was Colt living with you at that time or no?
No. Colt had already, when I went to jail, everybody left. Colt was nowhere to be seen. I'd see Colt every once in a while. He would swing through, see me, get some clothes, and then leave again. He didn't stay there because I really wasn't technically staying there either. I was staying with Geraldine most of the time.
And this is in 2013, in the months before Colt went missing?
Yes. Yeah. April, May, somewhere around in there.
Yeah, so a couple months.
That's another thing I wanted to ask you, like, what is the drug culture like there? Can anyone sell drugs? Like, what is it? How does it work?
Yeah, as long as you got more in your pocket than I have money in my pocket, you're the dealer at that time. And that's putting it loosely. If I have enough to sell you and you have money, I'm probably gonna sell you some drugs or do them with you recreationally. Was
a lot of people doing drugs in that area?
Wilson is rampant, still to this day.
So you got out, you couldn't pay your bond, and then what happened? You went back to jail?
I went back to jail, Carter County Jail.
Okay.
I have no idea why I got bonded out the second time by a lady named Miss Freeman. That's all I know is her last name, Miss Freeman. She bonded me out the second time. She gave me a ride home. I was supposed to go to church with her on Sunday because she bonded me out and she was going to try to help me. Jason Dillard called her, asked me if I would go help them pack some of their clothes so they could leave Oklahoma and go to Texas. I agreed. I got in the car that evening. We were driving down Oswald Road in Love County. Cop passed us. Jason Dillard jumped out of the car, jumped from the back seat to the front seat, started driving, and we got pulled over. We went to jail. Jason Dillard got away.
What'd you go to jail for?
I went for possession of methamphetamines in excess of 28 grams or more, fentanyl pills, promethazine, Xanaxes, Lortabs, syringes, scales, baggies.
Oh, so you had a lot of stuff.
And none of it was mine. God honest truth, and none of it was mine.
Did you even know it was in the car?
I knew Jason Dillard had drugs, but I didn't know he had them to that extent, or I would have been high that night. I was sober that night because I was supposed to be going to church in a day or two. But if I knew he had that many drugs, I would have been high, and I'm just being transparent with you guys.
You would have been high? You would have taken them?
I would have been high, but I was sober. So I knew that he had drugs. He's always got drugs, but I didn't know to the extent of what drugs that he had.
Yeah. And is that why he was moving to Texas? He had to get out of there because it was too hot for him?
I didn't ask him any questions. I just told him I would help him.
So then you and go to jail, and then what happened?
I sat in jail for 9 months. Gets bonded out. She takes a deal at some point while I'm sitting in there for 9 months. I don't see a judge for 9 months. I see the judge on my arraignment day. The very next morning, I see the judge. They set my bond to $5,000. They take me back to my cell. They bring me back like 3 days later to give me my charges, and they were going to give me trafficking, 30 years to life in prison, being a passenger in a car. And I told them, take me back to my cell and tell them I wanted a lawyer. Well, that's all on me. I have to get my own lawyer, St. New York. But I didn't see a judge again for 9 months because I laughed at him.
When you saw the judge, what happened?
When I finally went back before the judge, lawyer had them send all the drugs to the crime lab and have them weighed and tested And when it came back from the lab, there was only 13.7 grams of methamphetamines and nothing else. So they dropped it from 30 years trafficking. When I seen Robin Branch, I don't know how many days after the chase incident of the police chase and all that stuff, I don't know how many days after that, but when I came and bought drugs from him, he asked me if I'd seen my brother. He didn't seem any different than he did any other day.
When you went to go see Rob Branch, who were you with? Why did you go there?
When I seen Robin Branch, I had stolen a motorcycle from Rob Nichols' house in Hilton. I had it out in Orr, was working on it. We took David Hodgson and his wife, Kathy Grace, to Ardmore, dropped her off at work. On the way back, we stopped and I bought drugs off of Robin Branch. That's when he asked me, hey, have you seen your brother? I'm looking for him. No, I haven't, but he'll always turn up. That was about the way the conversation went. He asked me what I was doing. I told him I was working on something out at Orr and that I'd come see him in a couple of days. His demeanor was no different than it usually was. Hyped up, wide-eyed on methamphetamine, like we always were.
When you got there, what was he doing? What had happened in the house?
Nothing had happened in the house. At that point, that had happened after Jerry Lynn had gotten out of jail. I don't know when she got out of jail. When I'd seen him that night, that day that I'd seen him, I don't know, the house was still intact.
Okay.
It was days later when I went out there, I don't know how many days later, to see him because I told him I'd come back. The house was destroyed. The siding was pulled off the house. The carpet was out of the living room. He was living in. He already had moved a traveler trailer, small camper down there that him and Nikki were staying in. So it had to have been several days because they already had alternate living arrangements by the time I made it back out there.
And when you went back out there, was Geraldine with you?
Yes, she was.
So the two of you went there together?
Her and Nikki went in the house, and me and Rob sat outside and did some drugs, smoked some drugs. And they went in the house and they talked and just shooting the shit. I was telling him about the motorcycle, the pipe that I had, telling him I needed to get rid of some drill collar or some tubing that I'd stolen, and I wanted to know if he knew anybody that could help me get rid of it. We weren't there very long. We got some drugs from him and left.
Tell me a little bit about Jerry Lynn and your relationship with her.
When I got out of Love County, spent 9 months in Love County. When I got out and went back home to my grandmother's house, I was on probation, waiting on I actually went and I got out, called Carter County, had my court date reset at Carter County, went in and pled guilty to the 5 years deferred on that charge in Ardmore because I was guilty of it. There's no need of me fighting it. Just like the charge I'm in on now, there's no need of me fighting it. I was guilty of it.
So Colt was,
I didn't know.
Who was he living with?
I don't know. I can't tell you that. He would show up, we'd hang out for a little bit, do a little bit of drugs, and he'd blow out. We never stayed in one place very long. I bounced from Jerry Lynn's, my grandma's, and Orr. Did
Jerry Lynn ever have a relationship with Colt, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Would you have cared if she did?
Not really. Bobby Williams. She was sleeping with Bobby Williams, Mikey Williams.
And you knew all this?
Would I have been upset about it? Yes, I would have been upset about it because it was my brother. Family's supposed to together. There was no talk of an affair until 2020.
Oh, an affair between Colt and Jerry Lynn?
Yes.
Okay,
there was no mention of any of that until 2020.
Why do you think that is the case? Why do you think that was never brought up until 2020?
Because I don't think it ever happened.
Got it.
And who was Jerry Lynn talking to in 2020?
Jackie Bates.
Okay. I'm going to ask you something else, too, that Jackie talked. I'm going to ask you another question about what Jackie was talking about, too. You mentioned something about you having an alternate personality named Clint. Can you tell us about that? Does that make any sense to you?
One more time?
Jackie was indicating that you had some sort of alternate personality named Clint that you used to take on.
No, my street name was Flint.
Flint.
Yes.
Okay.
Flint. That was my street nickname.
Got it.
That's all that was.
That's you didn't have this alternate personality that you used to dip into, so.
No, that was just my street nickname.
All right. So going back to Jerry Lynn and Colt, had you ever seen them together? I mean, did they ever spend any time together?
Yes, my brother Dub was the one who actually I was with when I met Jerry Lynn. He's the one who took me over to her house. But Dub and Jerry Lynn we were dating. She moved to Long Grove at some point. And Dub and Colt went with her to help her move or clean or something while I was at work working at C&J's in Fox, Oklahoma. So I had a job when I was seeing Jerry Lynn. So I really didn't see her all that much anyway.
And Colt, was he dating a lot of different girls?
The only girl that I knew that he was dating was Katie Savage. Now I did when I seen him at Rob Nichols. I can't tell you when it was. It was sometime before the car chase because I spent like 36 hours over there with Rob Nichols, my little brother Colt, and his girlfriend at the time was...
And did you ever meet Molly?
No, I've never met Molly.
So you didn't even know who she was?
No.
So the last time you saw Colt, he was with...
He was with and Rob Nichols. When I left their house in Hilton, they were all asleep. Fine, breathing, in good spirits.
And where did you go from there?
I walked from Hilton to Orr.
And then when you got to Orr, what'd you do? Who was there when you got there?
David and Kathy, and one of her kids was there. I can't tell you which one it was.
And did you own a cell phone at that time?
No, I didn't.
So when you walked, how long did it take you to walk from Hilton to Orr?
It took me about 9 hours to walk from South Hilton to Orr, Oklahoma.
And then when you got to Orr, what did you do?
When I got there, I felt it. I remember I barely made it through the door. I collapsed in it, I was pretty dramatic about it, trying to get sympathy, play it up a little bit. But I collapsed in the hallway, and I told him I just walked from Hilton, and Dave was like, geez, why didn't you call me? I was like, I don't have a phone, dummy. But I drank some water and ate a bowl of cereal right there in the hallway and went to sleep.
Why did you leave the house that Colt and Rob?
Everybody was asleep, and I was the only one awake.
Were you high at the time?
Yes, extremely high.
All right, so you walked 9 miles fueled on meth.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So then what happened the next day?
The next day, I got up and went out there to see Rob and Colt, to see my brother Colt, really, and they weren't there. His nice motorcycle was there, and I took it.
You took Rob Nichols' motorcycle?
I took Rob Nichols' orange, spiked-out motorcycle. It had spikes all over it.
And you took it... What'd you do? You took it back to Orr?
I took it straight to Orr. I had David help me unload it out of the back of his truck. Because this is a heavy, like a Harley-Davidson type lowrider, forks out. Yeah, stole the motorcycle from Rob Nichols, took it out to Orr. David helped me unload it. We started working on it right there.
And then what did you do with the motorcycle after that?
It sat there.
Did he know that you stole it?
No, he didn't. No.
When did he find out?
I don't know when he found out. I tried to get that 3-day span from when I took the motorcycle to when I went to steal something to pay for the belt for the transmission on a motorcycle, which was an oil-filled trailer full of tubing.
When Rob Branch told you that they couldn't find Colt, what did you think?
Well, I didn't think anything about it, because when he initially asked me, hey, I'm looking for your brother Colt. Have you seen him? Have you heard from him? No, I haven't heard from him. I don't know where he's at. He said, well, I'm looking for him. My grandfather, or Con's grandfather, Rob Branch and Con Nip are kin somehow. And Con Nip's grandfather had gotten robbed. So I was told by Rob Branch. But that when he'd seen Con and Colt, that they had a bunch of drugs, a bunch of money, a bunch of jewelry. And I told him, I said, I don't know where he's at. But, he'll turn up. He always does. He always turns up, as far as it really went.
So how long was it before you realized that Colt wasn't coming back?
To me, I really didn't start getting worried until Molly's family got involved and it started becoming a public issue on media and started floating through the years, which it didn't get to me out there at Orr for weeks.
Because what was your life like back then?
Carefree, and I had no responsibilities. I was 31, 32-year-old drug addict running from the laws. I didn't even know that there was a high-speed chase until days later, and I found out about that he was injured days after that. I'm getting bits and pieces from this guy that I go see, or this other guy over here is telling me this. And then at one point I was told that Molly and Colt were with Jason Dillard in Wichita Falls.
Did you believe that?
Which is plausible, because they went to spring break with Colt and Jason Dillard, and there was another girl, I can't think of her name. They were gone for spring break for 2 weeks, and nobody even realized that they were gone until they come back. It was like, where y'all been?
You just assumed that Colt would come back.
Yeah, we didn't keep track of each other.
Were you ever questioned by the police in Colt's disappearance back then?
No, the first time I got questioned about anything was in 2019 when Jackie called me.
And what did Jackie call you about?
About the motorcycle.
And then after he started talking to you about the motorcycle, what happened?
Well, we conversated for 30 days on phones until that job quit with Hal Oilfield Equipment. And I came back to Oklahoma and went to Ringland and met him and sat down at a restaurant. But I sat down with him for hours with, him in full uniform, police attire, body cam, all the works. Sat down and I talked to him for hours about all of this that I'm telling you now.
And why did you sit down with him originally?
To let him know what I knew about it. And what I know about it is all third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh person information.
True.
Because Jackie did it his independent his independent investigation showed Molly and Colt's phone pinging off of 2 different towers for several hours until he thinks they died. Why didn't he do the same thing with Colin Knipp's phone and Kobe Barrett's phone and whoever else, all the other people that, Rob Nichols, Rob Branch, why didn't he do that with their phones to find out where they went?
No, that's a good point. Colt, if he had been out there in the woods and he was hurt, do you think that he would have just stayed there, or you think he would have tried to get somewhere to get help?
No, that's something I asked Jackie. I said, my little brother was 20 years old, a pocket full of drugs. If his foot was broken off, he still would have made it to... I was like, how? My little brother's not just going to lay there and die. We're Hayneses. We don't die. And he's like, well, I think he gave me this skill about he fell in a ridge and he broke his leg, and with the heat, no water, and pocket full of drugs, you do more drugs, you can strict veins, and yeah, but that don't account for Molly. She was healthy and fine. Why didn't she make it to I don't see my little brother lying there and dying, and I don't see Molly lying there like a lost little puppy dog next to him and just starving to death.
It doesn't make sense.
No, and that's when he started throwing all these more, what would you call, scenarios into the works. Well, he had a pocket full of drugs and had no water, and he'd been out there all night long. And still, that don't make sense to me. What else don't make sense to me? If he knows where they're at, why haven't they been found? If he knows exactly where they're at, Jackie Bates.
Mm-hmm. So how did this whole thing with Geraldine happen? So let's go back. So 2013, when did you break up with Geraldine?
I went to prison.
Okay. When Colt went missing, when did you go back to jail?
After.
Right.
I got out in January 2013. January to October, Colt and Molly and I went to jail in October of that year for violation of probation.
And what was the violation of probation?
On the 5-year deferred sentence out of Love County. Because I wasn't doing my probation, and I wasn't going to my probation meetings, I wasn't paying my fines, I wasn't doing what I promised I would do to get out of jail. That's why I was back and forth to Orr, because I wasn't living in my grandmother's house anymore. Went to prison in November. When I went to jail, went back 2 weeks later, and I pled guilty to whatever the DA was saying, and they sent me to prison. I was in prison. I was at A&R, McAllen, Lexington, by November. Geraldine came to see me one time in Oklahoma City when I was at DRI, which is a halfway house prison. You get stepped down from prison, you go to yard, then you go to work center, then you go to halfway house, and then you get released to Congress is back on the street. Well, Geraldine found out where I was and came and seen me with all her kids, and I told her it was, when I left, that was it. I didn't call her, I didn't write her. I sent letters back that she had sent me. I was done. She come and see me, and I told her to go home. She went home.
Why did you break up with her?
I was going to prison. I mean, there was not a relationship there to begin with, really, to tell you the truth. And I'm going to prison. I don't want to have to worry about her on the streets while I'm in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just more stress I don't have to deal with. She wasn't a good girlfriend while I was there. What makes you think she's going to be there when I'm gone? Just cut ties with everybody.
So when Jackie started talking to you guys in 2019, you were in...
I had no idea that he was talking to Geraldine. I had no idea. Me and Jackie, I was back in Oklahoma, in 2019, 2020. I was living behind Geraldine in Ringland while she was still talking to Jackie and still talking to me. I was talking to Jackie here and there. In 2020, when she told Jackie that there was an affair.
An affair with who?
With Colt. Her and Colt, Geraldine and Colt had slept together.
And at this point, who were you dating at this time? You're dating someone totally different.
Yeah, Alicia King.
So were you surprised to hear that there was this big affair between Colt and Geraldine?
Yeah, because in 2020, Jackie's trying to say that there was there was a lot of things said between me and Jackie. He come to my house, my residence there in Ringland, several times. I can't count how many. I don't know how many. For several hours at a time. Every time that he would come, and we would sit in the residence where I was staying in Ringland, in my driveway, in his truck, and he would tell me all this stuff that he was doing, When the thing come out with Geraldine, I was like, there was no affair. We weren't even really dating. But if they did have sex, I really wasn't mad about it. I couldn't be mad about it because I didn't know what she's doing. That's besides the point. If there was an affair, that should have come out in 2013. While I was talking to Jackie, he kept trying to get me hyped up, get me mad. At one point, he called my little brother a bastard about him sleeping with Geraldine. He said, and this is his exact words was, he said, that would have been me. I would have got mad. I would have killed him. And I said, look at what you made me do.
So repeat what you just said that Jackie said.
Jackie told me that if the situation was reversed and he was in my shoes, he would have killed Colt and justified it by look at what you made me do.
And what did you say to him when he said that?
I just sat there and looked at him. I didn't have a response for that because it was a hypothetical situation.
Well, he was also trying to lead you. He was leading you.
Yeah, he was trying to lead me into. You're not going to get. I'm not going to get emotional about this because I didn't have anything to do with it. You're not going to bait me into this thing. Just like at Carter County, that sheriff was trying to. The other investigator was trying to tell me that Jerry Lynn had a recording of me saying that I confessed to her, and I basically called him a liar. And then he got really offended and he got heated, and I did it.
Why did she say these things?
That's what I've tried to figure out myself. But she won't. Just like her and Jackie, anytime I talk to them, they weren't telling me the truth. They were in my opinion, they were feeding me information to try to get me to confess to something I didn't do. This whole time, I've taken everybody to face value. As truthful as I've been to everybody else, I've expected everybody to be the same with me.
Right.
I'm finding out that is not the case at all. People that I, was in a relationship with Jerry Lynn and Jackie, giving me money, taking me to appointments, helping me get my driver, get an ID.
And why was he giving you money?
Because he knew I was in a bad situation.
So he was acting like he was trying to help you.
Yes. And there are text messages from my phone at this time, 2019, 2020, 22, 21, 22, 23, of me thanking him, wholeheartedly. My family and Molly's family, I'm thanking you from the bottom of my heart for spending so much time on this and trying to get to the bottom of this. Long paragraph messages because I really thought he was trying to help me. Now that I'm sober and talking to you guys and putting everything together.
There's no charges against you right now. It's unfortunate that Jackie did what he did to you and then comes up with this theory that doesn't have any evidence. I'm sorry, but Geraldine's statement doesn't really mean much to me. It's a little ridiculous. And the fact that you weren't involved in any of the police reports from the beginning. I went through everything and there's nothing.
Well, and he said several times that if the roles were reversed, he would have killed Colt, and then justified it by saying, "Look at what you made me do." And he said that 3 or 4 times. Look at what you made me do. Look at what you made me do.
And just so you know, he told me that, and he didn't say. He said that you said that.
No, he recorded every one of our conversations. I know he did. That's why those were his words. That came out of his mouth, not mine.
Would you ever have hurt Colt?
No, I would not.
How did you feel when you realized that Colt wasn't coming home?
I still have hope that they're in Cancun right now, and I struggle with the fact that I don't know if my little brother was a Christian or not. With the life that he lived, and I struggle with that.
Well, I think God's forgiving, and I think he was. If he was murdered, then I think that he's with God.
Yep.
Regardless. Am I upset? God knows I'm upset about it. God knows that I've wanted to go and ask my own questions, but that would get us nowhere but where we are now.
Yeah.
That's what I told that investigator when he came and seen me when I got out of prison in 2015. I can't tell you his name. I don't know. He interviewed me, and I said, "You're just wasting your time with me because I have no information that pertains to their disappearance." Information I've heard, and I've heard every plausible theory that you can muster up in a rational humanity mind and a wicked mind have come to me and told me, "This is what I heard. This is what I was told. This is what so-and-so told me." And I've told every one of them, "I don't want to hear what you have to say. You need to tell it to the cops. You need to go to the investigators and let them know." And Hannah can attest to this, that they were like, "Look, I need to tell you." There was a few with tears in their eyes. And I said, "If it's going to make you sleep better at night, tell me." And I would listen to their outlandish fabrications or theories or 17th generation information from his brother who was in prison 16 years ago. I've heard it all, but none of it is first-hand information. It's not even second-hand information.
We've heard all that too. Do you know who Colby Barrack is?
I've never met the guy.
Never.
I've never been on the road that they live on. I haven't even looked these people up on the internet to see what they look like. That's how I want my brother and Molly to be found.
Nick Huffaker, you know who he is?
I do know him, but I don't know him personally. I was in drug court with his fiance, or wife now, funny story. Well, I was in drug court with her. She would come and pick me up and take me to meetings. Nick found out that me and her were friends and who I was. She stopped talking to me because of this incident. And I really never got to talk to her ever again after that.
Did you think that maybe Nick Huffaker knew what happened?
I don't know. When she told me who her fiance or husband was, I pushed them together. I reconciled their relationship for him, not even knowing who he was. But she said that he is cousins to Kobe Barrick. Again, that means nothing to me. What is that supposed to mean to me? But it was a big deal to him to tell his fiance that she couldn't speak to me anymore. Like,
yeah.
we were really close. Like, we sat together, we went to meetings together. You know, we laughed it up and made fun of the people that come in that we knew were still messed up at drug court, at the AA and NA meetings. We'd make fun of them together. And then just one day, she's like, Jesse, I can't talk to you no more because Nick Huffmaker's my husband and my fiance, and he's skinned to Kobe Barrick and this whole Molly Colt thing. And I was like, what does that have to do with me?
Mm.
You know, what does that have to do with you and me being, you know, making it through this drug court thing together? With, you know, and that was it. That was pretty much the last time I ever talked to her. So it was a big deal to him, but I don't know him.
Mm.
That's interesting.
You were in drug corps when?
2017 to 2019.
Right. So I just met you in 2019 after you got out of drug corps.
I just graduated. I was probably still in drug court at that time.
So after you met Rob and I when we were doing the TV show, how long after that did Jackie come visit you?
He called me. He got a hold of me while I was in Texas on the phone.
Do you remember if that was after you met us or before?
Yeah, that was months after you guys. Thanksgiving 2019. I went to Arkansas to see my sister Jamie and spent Christmas with my sister Jamie. I went to Tulsa and seen a friend of mine that I went to rehab with in Woodward right after Christmas. Then I seen a girl in another town in between here and spent the week with her in March when I met up with Jackie in Ringling and sat down and had lunch with him and talked to him about all this.
So it would have been, what, 2020 then?
2020, yes. I had to borrow a car to go from 3 counties over, and I had to borrow a car to get to Carter County for that interview that Jackie just wanted to throw at me because my name come up because Jerry Lynn said something about this affair. And I said, if you make an appointment, I will be there. I want to do all that I can to help you guys in y'all's investigation to find my brother and Molly.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want. That's when I was still in the police department, and they were doing their interview, and they asked, well, if we set up a polygraph test, would you be willing to take a polygraph test? Yes, whatever you need. I'll be there. You set it up, and I will be there.
Jackie started talking to you. Were you dating Jerry Lynn?
No, I wasn't dating anybody at the time. I was with Alicia King, living behind Jerry Lynn in a loft apartment, and me and Alicia King were renting the upstairs apartment from Jerry Lynn's landlord. Did
you think it was strange that Jerry Lynn all of a sudden said that she had an affair with Colt?
It was normal for her to sleep around. Did I get upset that it was brought up? No, I told Jackie. I said I didn't think it was a big deal.
Yeah. What do you think is the motive of trying to finger you for Colt's death and possibly even Molly's?
The notoriety of the case and the reward money. That's the only thing I can think of. That I didn't do it. I had no part in Colt and Molly's disappearance. I had no part in the chase. I had no part in the running. I had no part in any of the phone calls, any of the text messages, any of the searches that went on for Colt and Molly. I had no idea. If I knew that they were out there stranded and hurt, I wouldn't stop until I found them or I died myself.
Did you have a cell phone at that time?
No. I had no communication. The only communication I had was my grandmother's phone, and that's the one I primarily used when I was at my grandmother's. I wasn't with her, or there was hardly any service out at Orr, Oklahoma, where I lived on Hodgson Lane. So if we did have a phone, nobody ever used them until we left and got closer to Ringling.
Did you have a car?
No, I didn't have a vehicle.
So you didn't have a car, you didn't have a phone, you were basically couch surfing at people's houses? Okay, and the only way you were making money was from dealing drugs?
But no, I wasn't dealing drugs at this time. I was stealing things to pay for my habit.
Got it. So you were just feeding your habit from items that you stole.
Yeah.
So you had no job?
No. I had a job at the beginning of the year. When my grandmother kicked me out, I had her vehicle up until, I don't know, April maybe. And then when I lost my job, that's when I lost the vehicle and things started snowballing.
Yeah. If Jackie was on this call right now, what would you say to him?
I would pray for you.
Why would you pray for him?
Because that's what I'm supposed to do. Pray for those who persecute me.
Next time on Partners in True Crime.
You may start the conversation now.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, so the last question I asked you was, do you think Rob Branch is capable of killing someone? If you have any information regarding the case, please contact the BIA at www.bia.gov/BIA/OJS/missing-murder-unit.
You can also call their hotline with tips at 1-833-560-2065 and email them directly at ojs_mmu@bia.gov.
And if you want to text them with a tip, text keyword BIA-MMU and send your tip to 847-411.
Check the Partners in True Crime website for this and any additional information.
If you or anyone you know is suffering from a methamphetamine addiction, please contact the American Meth Addiction Hotline.
If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual abuse, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content. Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and listen to Vi's original song, Take Me Back, written for Molly Miller.